So what's the story between Jon Jones and Brock Lesnar? Because I know a lot of folks watching this are UFC fans and WWE fans, and you're probably wondering, if you haven't been reading the dirt sheets, what is the story? So right now the story, well, let's start from the beginning. So there were rumors that came out, I want to say about a week and a half ago, about Lesnar possibly going back to UFC and then possibly retiring. Now, for those who don't remember, Brock fought in the UFC a year ago, well, about a year ago, against Mark Hunt, and he failed a wellness test, and as a result of that, he got suspended and whatnot, and then he came back to WWE. It was a deal that he had figured out between UFC and WWE to have one fight. Then, of course, he came back to WWE, and he still has a contract with them, and as far as we know, the contract with WWE is going to be expiring at WrestleMania next year. WrestleMania 34, New Orleans, will be Brock's last night as of right now. However, understand that Brock can still renew that contract and stay with WWE for several more years if he wants to. The WWE deal that Lesnar has is a pretty sweet one. It's probably the best deal that anybody's ever really had as far as like dates versus work. He gets paid about $5 million a year, flat fee as far as we know, to work a certain number of dates. Obviously, unlike everybody else who's on the road, Lesnar only does a handful of house shows, handful of TVs, and some pay-per-views, which is why you see him disappear for a couple of weeks or sometimes even a couple months. That's his deal. And it's a sweet deal. Think about it. You're a wrestler. You don't have to go on the road all the time. You can be at home most of the year training and not really beating yourself up and working matches once in a while. Well, Lesnar fighting in the UFC is a different story. Lesnar in the UFC can make a lot more money just based on one fight. So in other words, Brock can come in and fight just one fight and make, $5 million, $3 million, even more than that. And right now, especially after last night's UFC 214, Lesnar absolutely without question, and I'm recording this on Sunday morning, so this is probably going to go up on Monday, but I'm recording it Sunday morning. Lesnar versus Jon Jones could be a massive and will be a massive, massive fight. Jon Jones defeated Daniel Cormier, which has been his big rival for the past couple of years, and regained the UFC light heavyweight title. And he said after the show, he pretty much cut a promo and said, hey, Brock Lesnar, if you want to fight somebody 40 pounds younger than you and get beat, come back to the octagon. Now, people are already jumping and saying, oh, man, Lesnar, when are we going to see it? Is he leaving WWE? Right now, the situation is that we don't know if he's leaving WWE because it could be one of those things where his contract ends with WWE, he comes to UFC, and then he goes back to WWE after the Jones fight, cleans up some money, then goes back to WWE. That could very well happen. It's all about negotiations and kind of what they're going to be doing, and there's still a lot of time left because Lesnar is still under WWE contract, and also because of his suspension, Lesnar can't fight like tomorrow. As far as I remember, I believe he has to wait 6 months and he has to unretire first. So the earliest the fight could happen would probably be sometime around January, February, and that's just not realistic because Lesnar has to wrestle at WrestleMania. They've got plans for him at WrestleMania. You can't have a WrestleMania without Brock Lesnar under contract. So the idea of Lesnar fighting Jones before Mania, I think, is very, very slim to none. If he fights Jon Jones in February and gets hurt and can't wrestle at WrestleMania, it's going to end up costing WWE a lot of money. So the idea of Jon Jones and Brock Lesnar fighting next year at some point, that is plausible. I could totally see that happening in the summer of next year or maybe even in the winter or fall of next year. And I'm saying winter as in like November, December, not winter like in January because no, you can't do it. So I could totally see that happening for sure. The thing about Lesnar is he goes where the money is, and he's already been able to negotiate a deal where he can wrestle and do UFC, which is something that almost nobody, I can't even think of anybody who's been able to do that in the United States with WWE and UFC. Shamrock almost did it. Shamrock in 2000 went back to Pride with the idea they were going to bring him back to WWE later on. They wound up never doing that. But that was Pride, and that was in 2000. It was a very special deal. There have been other guys who have cut between MMA and wrestling. Obviously, CM Punk's another one, but he wasn't under a WWE deal when he did UFC. This is the only time. Lesnar's the only guy who has ever been a WWE contracted performer and been allowed to have a shoot fight on a UFC pay-per-view. That happened already. So the idea of Lesnar re-signing with WWE after WrestleMania for another couple years, maybe another $5 million deal or more. And the reason why I say more is because Lesnar is really good at negotiating himself to make good money, so he might get paid even more. The idea of him re-signing with WWE next year and then doing the Jones fight and then coming back, that seems to be the most plausible story here. That seems to be the most likely scenario, is that Brock Lesnar will do that versus, fighting Jones before Mania. So I don't see Lesnar fighting Jon Jones anytime in 2017. 2018, different story. Maybe even 2019. But one thing I will tell you, a couple things I want to clarify. Number one, the fight would be at heavyweight. Number two, Jon Jones was supposed to, for years, it's been talked about, he's going to move up to heavyweight and fight in the heavyweight division because he's getting bigger as he gets older, and he could fight at heavyweight. He cuts down to fight at light heavyweight. So the fight would be at heavyweight, and Lesnar would still outweigh him by a ton of weight. But with what Jones did last night, the way he knocked out Daniel Cormier and the way that he just completely lit everybody up, and that great post-fight interview where he said he felt bad about what he did, but he let the haters inspire him and all that, he really made himself a star. And the idea of a Jon Jones-Brock Lesnar super fight, it's not going to be as big as Mayweather versus McGregor. It's not going to be anywhere near as big as that, but for the UFC, they really do need a fight like this to kind of really, give him a big shot in the arm, because Conor's going to be gone probably after the Mayweather fight, and Ronda Rousey's gone, so they need like a big star, and Jon Jones wants to be that big star. So that is what I have for you today. Let me know in the comments, what do you think your prediction is for a Lesnar-Jones fight? Do you think Jon Jones is too skilled to beat Lesnar, or do you think Lesnar's weight advantage in wrestling is too much for Jon Jones? Also, what do you want to see out of Lesnar for the next year? Do you want him to re-sign with WWE? I do, because I think he's awesome. Do you want him to take a break? Because Lesnar might retire. Eventually, at some point, he's going to have so many millions that he's just going to retire, and that's that. You know what I mean? He'll be done. But let's see what happens. Anyways, thank you guys so much for checking out the video. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll talk to you later.